Welcome to Instant Analysis Wednesday practice. USC has a bye week this week, but coming off a loss 34-32 at Illinois. I'm Riley Sager. He's Connor Morrissette. Started off, injury updates. What do you got?
Yes, thank you, Riley. So nothing too major, nothing out of the ordinary. A lot of the same stuff we've seen. True freshman running back Harry Dalton remains out. Zacharias Williams remains out. The Utah receiver transfer, Brian Jackson, remains out. Lincoln Riley updated us on Jackson yesterday, said he won't be available for at least a couple more weeks, it sounds like. Two guys did come back after not practicing in full yesterday. Marquise Gallegos was back out there. Jakeem Stewart put on full pads, so that was great to see. Two other defensive linemen who weren't out there yesterday remain out, so I think they're just being precautionary there. We'll see as time goes on. I wouldn't worry anything about some new injuries with that. I think USC, for right now, they're just playing it safe. And then Christian Pierce was limited, Eric Gentry was limited, Justin Tawanu'u was limited, and Chris Trevino wanted me to point out that he's limited with a shoulder injury too. So I think he's okay, but he just wanted me to shout that out.
He'll be fine. Not necessarily injury update, but per usual on Wednesday, talk to the defense. Danton Lynn was sick today, so didn't have the chance to talk to him, but immediate takeaways from the guys.
Well, we only heard from four guys today, so the two people I interviewed, Desmond Stevens and Bishop Fitzgerald, and then I think Christian Pierce and Devin Tompkins were the other two guys, so we can get an update from you with them, Riley. But let's start with Desmond Stevens. He talked about wanting to turn the page after that Illinois defeat. I asked him what did Illinois do well that allowed them to run the ball successfully, and he said it wasn't as much about what Illinois was doing, it was about what we weren't doing. So I recommend watching the Illinois 24/7 site. They are rooting for Illinois clearly, but they did a nice film breakdown, and on one of the early runs, USC's linebackers, they just really didn't leverage very well, and they were up high, and they were just getting blocked, Stevens and Gentry, and that was an example, I thought, of what the Illinois offensive line was doing really well, where they double-teamed Jade Abasiri, and then a couple offensive linemen were able to get to the second level against the linebackers. The bottom line was that Illinois was just really physical on the offensive line, and it didn't really look like USC responded. So we'll see how they answer against Michigan. The secondary's under a magnifying glass. That's what Desmond Stevens said when he was asked about some of the struggles there. So something that we've heard Lincoln Riley talk about, that seems to be a talking point with the team right now. If the secondary makes a mistake, it's a lot bigger than if the defensive line and linebackers make a mistake. The last thing that Desmond Stevens said that I thought was interesting, he said, we have maniacs everywhere on this roster, and that is people who are maniacs in the film room, are people who are maniacs in the film room, maniacs in the training room, maniacs on the field. They're channeling their inner maniac to try to come back against Michigan in about 10 days here and set the record straight after that loss to Illinois. So we'll see if they channel their inner maniac, because I think they're going to need to against a Michigan team that's run the ball pretty well this year.
Yeah, safety Christian Pierce, he was asked about the corners, not necessarily his position group, but just like what are they feeling, and he just described them as hungry, which rightfully so after last week's game. We saw the nice fumble recovery from him after Gentry punched it out of the guy's arms, and Christian Pierce jumped on top of it, got that turnover. Anything else from the game?
Well, Pierce was hitting exceptionally hard. I felt like he was one of the only players on that defense to rise to the occasion. He did have the roughing the passer penalty on the Philly special play that Illinois ran, but he decked a tight end. He had a big hit in the run game. I continue to be really impressed with Christian Pierce, and I know Lincoln Riley is too, so expect to continue to see a lot of Christian Pierce, and he seems so confident. It's just night and day, Riley, from where he was last season when he was having some trouble totally locking in on the defense and just understanding what they were asking him to do, and what a difference a year makes, where he's been locked in on the film room and he looks so comfortable out there playing naturally, playing free-flowing. There's some guys who could take some pointers from him right now, because other players on the defense kind of not playing with that same general understanding. It looks like there are other guys who are kind of second-guessing themselves a little bit, so that was great to see. And then with Bishop Fitzgerald, he spoke today. He talked about how this bye week, it's going to be a reset for USC. He feels like this week they have a nameless and a faceless opponent. That's what Danton Lynn's been preaching to the team. They got to go 1-0 next week. They're 0-0 right now after the loss. Take it 1 week at a time. Nameless, faceless opponent. And just really resetting the deck and trying to get back out there and make some changes for the better. That was a big part of what Bishop talked about. And then he also mentioned how D. Reddick, the true freshman who came in for Kevin Longstreet to play some nickel, he was really impressed with what Reddick did, his first college action on defense. He looks like someone who's going to continue to be a contributor as the season goes on. And out of all the bad things that happened defensively for USC, I do think that was one of the good stories where D. Reddick came in, and I thought he had a nice game.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Connor, but just being at practice today, the vibes seem kind of low, more like the guys, they understand the loss, they're trying to get out of the way, but also learn from it. Now they're just sticking their head in the ground and moving forward.
Absolutely. They know they got to move forward, but I agree with you, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We saw some guys on offense that looked like they were having fun. And it's not a whole team thing, but yeah, just the vibes, especially with the scrums. After a loss and the defense doesn't play well, you can kind of tell that this has been bothering these guys. And I know you heard from Devin Tompkins. He addressed the team. A lot of the guys in leadership roles addressed the team, and the message was, we know what it takes to get better. We know what we have to do. And Tompkins talked about starting fast. That was something he repeated in his scrum. So it sounds like the message from the leaders on the team are not to just keep doing what they're doing. Of course, you want to make some changes, but like they know what the standard is. They know they didn't meet the standard against Illinois, and that's why this Michigan game in about 10 days is so fascinating, because can USC bounce back and answer that standard? We'll see.
Yeah, he just kept repeating starting fast, and he was saying that the defense just, they weren't getting it out of the gate. Like, they were slow to start. They weren't adjusting to the game, and I asked him, like, why wasn't that adjustment happening? And he said, to be honest, it starts in practice. Like, now is the week before Michigan. Like, you can do all you need to in practice, and sometimes it doesn't show on the field during the game, but he said it starts in practice, and that's going to help them play faster.
Interesting. I'll have to go back and listen to that, because that kind of sounds like they weren't getting it done in practice before the Illinois game, and I mean, it's hard to argue with that after that defensive performance. So I went on the big rant yesterday just about how that was such a great opportunity for USC, where yes, we knew Illinois would respond, but they're a team that pretty clearly isn't as good as their preseason ranking, and that was an opportunity on national TV, Fox, Big Noon Kickoff. The country was watching. It was one of the most viewed games. I think they were over 4 million viewers for that game, which was maybe 5th or 6th best in the country. Like, you had the nation's attention, and then they start slow, and maybe it started in practice. That was just really disappointing. So we don't have to talk about the food poisoning. That obviously played a role. Kamari Ramsey, Eric Gentry not feeling great, but that is an excuse, and Lincoln Riley said we're not an excuse-making program. I think there were other issues way bigger than just that, of course, and we'll see how the defense responds. This Michigan game, I keep saying it, it is massive. I know most of the fan base feels that way. A loss, you start to have some serious questions about where this is all going. A win, and not that USC's right back on track, but it just will make such a big difference, because Michigan, they're a program that, while they're not perfect, they lost on the road to Oklahoma. They have some talent. They have an identity. They're a formidable foe, and USC's going to have to rebound, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Tompkins backed up what you were saying about the no excuses and what Coach Riley was saying. Someone asked about Kamari Ramsey and his thoughts on that, and he said obviously Kamari's a great player, but he felt like they could have won without him, so I think that just speaks to how they're taking responsibility for this, because they were the ones on the field.
And they could have won without him, even with how they played. It came down to the last play of the game. If the kicker for Illinois misses that, I think, 41 or 42-yard kick, then USC does win, but the defense would surely still have had a bad taste in their mouth, and it's no excuse for how they played still. But it is pretty unique that USC, with some guys not being healthy, was able to battle back, go up by 2, and we all know what happened after that. But the fight that they showed in that game was great, and this offense for USC, they're going to keep this team in a lot of games, probably all of the games, if Jade Maiava continues to play the way that he's playing right now. He leads the country in quarterback rating. Bill Connolly on ESPN released his quarterback rankings from a statistical analysis, and Maiava was first. He's really doing about as well as you can possibly have hoped, so that's encouraging. Mekhi Lemon's been awesome. Hopefully Jacoby Lane gets healthy. It's not all doom and gloom, but defensively, that was a pretty rough performance, and they need to respond, as I keep saying. So all eyes will be on Danton Lynn's unit against Michigan, and I just hope they start faster. They clearly understand that they got to do that. Now it's just on them. The onus is on them to go out and do it.
Yep, back in the Coliseum, less than 2 weeks, about a week and a half, 4:30 kickoff. No preview tomorrow. And
next week.
Yes, next week. no tunnel vision on Sunday. So USC fans, enjoyed the bye week, but we'll be back next week with more coverage. I'm Riley Sager. He's Connor Morrissette. Thank you.